All right, everybody, welcome back to America's Mom. Yes, we are on a different day. Kids are getting out of school this week. It's been really, really hectic, as all mothers across America know. So today is our last day of school. How many of you guys are cheering? How many of you are crying at home? It just kind of depends, doesn't it? But we are so excited. We have so many plans for the summer. We have so much that we are looking forward to doing. And mostly we just love doing life with our kids. We miss them a lot. We used to homeschool. And so having them gone throughout the day is actually quite sad for us. We miss them all the time. So I'm really, really excited. Today's the last day and they're going to be home and we're going to have a great, great summer. We have so much great stuff planned for this show, for America's Mom throughout the summer as well. You guys are going to love the guests that we are bringing on and what we have prepared for you. We are actually going to be starting an entire series on women's health. On Fridays, of course, we'll have our stories of incredible parents who have been through the pharmaceutical gamut. And thank God have either come out on the other side and some of them not so fortunate. Their children have not come out on the other side with them, but they are now using their voices to proclaim loud and clear that Big Pharma does not have good intentions for you and your children. And nothing could make that more evident, really, than what we're seeing happen in Colorado. We're going to be talking about that today. But I want you to know we're going to have an incredible summer. We're going to be bringing some State Department heads on to talk to us directly about what's actually going on in the administration. We're going to be able to ask them bold questions right here on America's Mom. And you know, I don't give two cares. I kind of lost all my feelings a while ago with teenagers pretty much. So here we are. We're going to have a great time. And I'm really, really looking forward to sharing this summer with all of you guys while you're home with your kids. And this is always a show that your kids are going to be able to watch with you. I will let you know on some of them. That's going to be a little bit rough. We have some detransitioners that are going to be coming on, and that will be a little bit rough. But other than that, we're going to have a great time. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 1 p.m. Central Time, all summer long. I also want to remind you our special line, our support line for parents, we are extending who can use that line. It's not just for those who are involved with the trans cult and you have school officials or you have trusted adults who are grooming your children or trying to transition them, of course, without your consent. And of course, that line has been available for you guys for the last 6 months. That is 1-833-42 Protect Kid. And my husband pointed out, he's like, there's too many letters. It's not actually. We got to create the number, and that's what we created. And so every kid matters, each individual kid, right? If we can save just one, that's what we're going to do. So 1-833-42 Protect Kid. But due to Moms for America's strategic alliance with HHS to defund CPS across the country, we are extending it to parents who are dealing with CPS right now. You remember that we had Pacific Justice Law Institute on last week, and they announced that they were taking cases across the country of parents who are involved in CPS and don't know what to do. So we are going to be expanding this number to support parents who are going through serious problems with Child Protective Services in your state. Excuse me. And I want you guys to take advantage of that. And we're going to be introducing you to law firms across the country who can help you, who can get you out from under CPS. Again, this is a non-mandate. This CPS is a non-mandate that is being funded by taxpayer dollars, by federal taxpayer dollars. And thankfully, HHS is trying to find a pathway forward to stop funding abusive organizations that are not accountable to anybody, because CPS is not law enforcement. They're not. And so there needs to be some proper reestablishment of order and chain of command. And CPS is not at the top of that list, although they've been acting like they are for the last 25 years or longer. So we're going to be sharing that number with all of our parents who are dealing with that as well. So 1-833-42 Protect Kid if you are dealing with the trans activist cult, groomers, adults in authority who are abusing your child, or you've had a horrendous interaction with CPS. This number is now available for you. So please take advantage. All right. So HHS, just bring it back to that for just a moment. We've been talking about RFK, Bobby Kennedy, what he's been doing to protect families. And I just want to share this message. We didn't have it last time that we were on together. Just very short. This was a couple of weeks ago when it was announced by HHS that they were actively going to be working with doctors across the country to decouple patients from their pharmaceuticals, specifically SSRIs. And it's an incredibly bold move by the administration. And I want to shed a little bit more light on that after this message from Bobby Kennedy. This is what he had to say at the recent event in Washington, D.C.
CMS, the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, is issuing billing guidance that allows clinicians to get paid for deprescribing work for the first time. Care plans. CMS.
Uh, ab- Absolutely incredible move by HHS. Okay. So, just for doctors and pharmacists and people in natural health out there, the government for the first time is going to be funding. They will be, in fact, it's an urgency, and you will be awarded first. Like, I mean, they're putting you at the front of the line for moving into this position of decoupling patients from prescription medication. Okay. So you now have an incentive by the government to stop drugging American citizens. Okay. So for as much as there's been this massive incentive by pharmaceutical companies to put our children and great Americans on prescriptive medication that is just destroying them. I mean, what is that called? Non NPCs, right? People just walking around like zombies. Yeah, that ends. That needs to end. It's going to end. And like I said, this summer we're going to be spending a lot of time with families who have been impacted directly by the incentivization process of giving children pharmaceuticals. That's what it boils down to. Because as a parent, I try everything first. I do everything. I do all the natural. I do everything before I even give a half of an ibuprofen. Okay, because I that's my kid. I'm fully vested there. Well, for the first time, the government is going to be fully vested in helping our American citizens get pill free. So I'm very, very, very excited about that. And then, secondly, I want to share this with you guys. Whereas America may be moving towards life and supporting life, you've all heard about the MAID program. I'm not going to go into this at length, but I felt that this was a public emergency. I think this is a public announcement, emergency announcement that should be like ringing on everybody's laptop right now. It should be coming up on your phone saying, check out what Canada is just now doing. Whereas America is fighting for life on all fronts, Canada has found yet another way to implement their MAID program. And this time, my friends, as it always does, deteriorate to the worst possible imaginations. Now they're going to kill babies. Take a listen.
I want to draw attention to three concerns about the widening scope of euthanasia in Canada. These are not concerns from the fringes, but statements from a member of a provincial medical college, recommendations before Parliament, and the reality of MAID right now in Canada. And most Canadians are not yet aware of the extent of the horror. The first concern is about a statement regarding infants. A member of the Quebec College of Physicians has formally stated that MAID may be an appropriate treatment for babies from birth to 1 year of age, who come into the world with severe deformities and very serious syndromes, and that parents should have the opportunity to obtain this care for their infant. Canadian law currently permits the withdrawal of life-sustaining treatment for critically ill newborns. This medical practitioner's proposal goes further. He calls for the calculated killing of an infant. These are patients, babies, who cannot speak, cannot consent, and cannot ask for help. If we cannot draw the line here, I'm not sure where medical professionals imagine the line to be. The second concern is a proposal regarding mature minors. A report by the Special Joint Committee on Medical Assistance in Dying, AMAD, has recommended extending MAID to children with parental consent described as optional. A physician, not a child's parent, would determine whether a child is able to consent to his own death. In this discussion, MAID advocates showed their true colors and defended the rationale for euthanizing minors without consulting their parents. Yet 43 expert witnesses called this recommendation deeply flawed. I might call it something stronger. The third concern is euthanasia on demand. Ontario's chief coroner has documented MAID deaths driven not by illness, but by poverty, loneliness, and lack of housing. Approximately half of those who died by MAID in 2024 reported requesting it because they felt like a burden to their families, friends, or caregivers. These are not necessarily people dying of terminal illness. These are Canadians failed by a system that chose to offer them lethal injection rather than the support and hope they needed to live.
Pretty incredible. So if you are a baby, if you are a child, if you are poor, if you are unable, if you don't have a house, all of these are reasons now, and reasons that they are actively and aggressively marketing in Canada to end your life. This is absolutely not healthcare. And I'm really thankful to see Ontario physicians stepping up and saying such and calling this out. But you have to remember euthanasia exists here in America as well. I come from Colorado, where you also can go to a doctor to kill yourself. And I'm not aware of any particular stipulations on that. As long as you're over 18, of course, you can decide on your own. But I also haven't explored it. because I think these are things that are so unimaginable and so horrific. You don't actually want to know the truth of the whole situation. When I realized that they were delivering babies in Colorado and leaving them to die post birth, did I really want to know that? Intrinsically, no, because I can't imagine somebody being so evil. I can't imagine another human being sitting by watching a baby die and suffer like that. So it's hard to wake up to these things. It's hard to embrace that these are the realities. Death is part of this darkness that's consuming our world, and I know we're fighting it every day. But on this front, where taxpayers in Canada are actually paying for it because it's free, right? You can go have a doctor kill you for free. And if you're a child, I just want to kind of roll that back for just a second. What the point of that is, federal committees are now pushing to expand MAID to what they call mature minors, and that is discretionary. Those are children. And the physician gets to decide if that child is, quote, mature enough to decide to end their own lives. There's no age restriction attached. That's the current state of Canada. Makes you kind of want to say, yeah, Trump, let's take it. Greenland, Canada, Mexico, Cuba, Venezuela. Let's go. I'm ready for the whole region. I'm ready for the whole region to know freedom and to celebrate and move towards life. That's what we're about here in America. So if you did miss it this past Sunday, there was a recommitment of America back to God for the 250th anniversary of America. This is our birthday this year, 250th year of our founding. I do think our founders will be rolling in their graves, but I certainly appreciate the effort to try to have a Josiah moment, right, where we reestablish America and give it back to our founders. It's like, finding that dusty old Bible in the back rooms that your grandfather was hiding so that they could, kill babies and have and have all these death rituals, and finding it and deciding that you're going to reestablish the country back to God. I feel like that's what's happening right now. I never want anybody to forget, no matter what is going on, that it was President Trump who removed this horrible, dark, evil spot on our country of federal support of abortion. No matter what the Supreme Court tries to do moving forward, it was President Trump that removed this disgusting dark stain on our country and really gave us the opportunity to potentially choose life again and be a thriving country again by removing that stain. We can't be a country that kills our children while proclaiming prosperity and the greatest place in the world to live. They're completely incapable of coinciding together. You can't be prosperous and be killing your children and advocating for the murder of babies. It's just not possible. So I want to remember that as we move forward. So, with that in mind, of course, we always go back to Colorado. And by the way, I do think if there's life on Mars, they should hide. They should hide because inevitably there will be people like we just heard about who will try to find a way to kill any life we find on Mars. In Colorado, it's bad. It's really bad. Okay, it was really bad. I listened to you all got to hear that speech on Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever it was. And back in 2020, October of 2020, I thought it was really bad in Colorado, and I was like, "We're gonna have to leave. We're gonna have to move." We held on for a couple more years, but now in 2026, whoa! I mean, wow, a lot has happened. And for people who are still hanging on there, it's really, really bad when private DOW contractors are getting out into mainstream and formulating shows and trying to warn people and trying to call attention to the aggressive communist attacks happening every single day in that state. When people are praying, tagging department officials in the Trump administration every day, trying to get attention on the newest, craziest uh, inhumane thing that Colorado government is doing, which is happening every day, by the way. And, it's really bad when someone is willing to put their life on hold, who has a family, who has a reputation to uphold, and try to tell the truth to the public so that they might possibly take a stand, might possibly do something about that. So if you've been following Big Timber Lodge, like I have been following Big Timber Lodge for a while now, then you know that Nick Rogers is that man. He's that guy who has decided Colorado's worth trying. And I couldn't agree more. I think it's definitely worth trying. Nick, thank you so much for joining us on America's Mom today.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on, Sharona. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to remind everybody, you are a gun enthusiast, and
Hmm.
your whole platform was massive. It was gun centric, like all you big burly guys who love all that
Hmm.
stuff. You will love Nick's platform, and you were doing awesome.
I
Nobody was,
was.
silencing you. Like you're living your dream, and then you made the mistake. You
Yeah.
made the mistake.
made the
What was your
mistake of
mistake,
jumping
Nick?
into politics and becoming a political activist, because there's a lot of channels out there that spread the news of what's going on from a conservative standpoint,
Mhm.
but there's not that many channels out there that are telling people how to get in contact with their state representatives or their federal representatives, how to recall a politician. And when we launched a recall website for a local state senator that had co-sponsored one of Colorado's most egregious gun control bills, we launched the website the day before his vote, and we had thousands. I think we had 8,480 people in that live stream watching. And the website essentially said, sign up now. If Tony Exum, that's the state senator, votes yes on this gun control bill, we will recall him. We have a good candidate to run in his place. And the next day was the vote. We streamed to 9,600 viewers. And he voted no. Later that night, they said, Denver 7 News had him on the news and said, why did you vote no on your own gun control bill? He said, they were going to recall me and we can't afford for me to lose my seat. And then they showed the website. The next day that I went to live stream, I live streamed to 46 people, because from what I have been told is government leadership reached out to Google and said, silence this man. But I haven't stopped since, and I keep facing the shadow banning.
There is no clearer, I guess we could say alleged, but there's no clearer reality check that that's exactly what happened. If you are effective, and by the way, Jared Polis has a great relationship with Google
Oh,
directly.
surprise, surprise.
Yes, he has a great relationship with Google.
I
And
know.
so I think it's important for people to know your story. And that particular representative actually authored that bill. He had to vote against it because the power of the people was against him.
Hmm.
And for that, you have been punished.
Yeah,
You've been
absolutely.
punished.
Absolutely. Been punished for sure. I mean, we're still going at it. One of the things that I dug into with the help of a retired Denver police officer with 32 years, he was like a detective, and he was very upset at the fact that Colorado is trampling on people's civil rights. I've had him on the show multiple times. His name is Michael, and he exposed to me a couple of civil rights statutes from the civil rights era that the Colorado politicians are blatantly violating. Section 241 or Title 241, Title 242 under Section 13, which states that under no color of law may a law enforcement officer, politician, or judge restrict people's civil rights. And if they do, the Civil Rights Department can actually bring criminal cases against those individuals. And so he has been working with my channel for well over a year. We've been writing packets to the Department of Justice. I went to the DC. I gave the DOJ a phone call while I was there, filed a civil rights complaint. We've still been filing. And now Colorado has 2 lawsuits from the Assistant Attorney General, Harmeet Dillon of the Civil Rights Division, against Colorado for violating our civil rights. And so even though Polis and his ilk and Google have been trying to silence us, we're not quiet. They might hate the message, but they can't stop the signal. And now we've got the weight of the federal government coming down on Colorado for violating our civil rights.
And we expect it to keep raining in Colorado, by the way. I want to talk to you first before we get into Polis. This move by the Colorado Supreme Court to mandate that the Children's Hospital of Colorado resume their mutilation of children.
Hmm.
Their affirming care is so much more than just surgery. It's all leading down the same path. What happened there, from your understanding? The federal government, obviously, they lost the Supreme Court ruling, and actually funding. I mean, it's been everything. They lost the funding for the hospitals who are providing gender affirming care. And then, of course, we have the Supreme Court ruling that is stating that we can no longer mutilate children. Or maybe I'm getting ahead of my skis on
You're
that one.
getting
Was there a
you're
Supreme Court ruling on that?
Yeah, so that was last month. We'll kind of follow the congruence of this timeline. Colorado is a death cult. It's also a trans cult when it comes to wanting to mutilate children. They passed a law years ago saying that if you bring a child to a therapist and that child is confused about their body, the therapist legally was only allowed to affirm them to become transgender. The therapist could not have an open conversation, even if it's from a secular viewpoint, saying, maybe you're just confused right now and you're okay in your body. Maybe you're just a homosexual and you're confused about that. And you feel maybe you should be saying you're the opposite gender to be able to deal with the fact that you're a homosexual. That was illegal according to Colorado. And so we actually had a therapist take a case all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court had an 8-1 ruling saying that is a clear violation of a First Amendment right, even for a therapist, because now you're doing forced speech with a state sponsored agenda in order to say the only thing that you can tell a person is to confirm what the state is saying. And so that was said to be illegal. And then, of course, Colorado, within a couple of days, put into legislation a new bill that I still have to see if Polis signed into law, which is actually even more egregious of an attack on the First Amendment right, which isn't just even targeting the therapist now, it's also targeting the person that brought the child to therapy and also the employer of the therapist as well. And there is no statute of limitations with this new bill for the penalties for those individuals. And we even have seen Aaron from Parental Rights had a lawyer on talking about the fact that parents could now be in trouble for taking their child to a therapist that wanted to have an open conversation with their child. It's crazy what's going on here. So, am I surprised that Colorado is bucking the system and telling the state hospital to go ahead and continue to do child mutilation? Absolutely not, especially after we see the state spitting in the face of a SCOTUS ruling with an 8-1 decision against them trampling on people's First Amendment rights when it comes to these things.
That's exactly right. So that's what I want to get back to. So the House did pass a bill, literally the Congress passed a bill saying that you can no longer basically groom children across the
Right.
country. That's going to be directly tied to more federal funding loss. And in Colorado, you've got this crazy guy named Phil Weiser, who's the attorney general now. He is running for governor as the Democrat candidate of Colorado, and he is suing the Department of Education right now for withholding federal funds on loan programs in Colorado that just launched 2 days ago, but really it's associated with the transgender. We're not going to fund any of this stuff. If you're anti-Title IX, we're not funding you anymore.
Mhm.
This, no matter what the feds do, and I agree that states are supreme. I do not believe in the supremacy of the federal government. I believe in states' rights first and foremost. And in this particular situation, it's kind of it's a very difficult. It's really difficult because you do have this state that is being obviously doing illegal things, obviously, but we have what's called the supreme law. And the supreme
Right.
law, if anybody's violating your basic constitutional rights as they are written out for us, then those laws are no longer lawful. And the reality is that this push for the transgender ideology, this ruling that the children's hospitals now can reinstitute their gender affirming care, no matter what the federal government has said, no matter what the Supreme Court has said, no matter what the Congress has said, no matter what anyone has said, you now can start your gender therapy again, your gender care again. You are. I think it needs to be brought back to the basic level of the Constitution. How are they violating the rights of children? Because children don't have separate rights from their parents. No matter how Colorado has tried to play that, they are still dependent upon the parent until they're removed from custody by the state. So there's a lot of issues that are going to have to get worked out now because once again, and they should get worked out because Colorado is so out of control in constantly subverting parental rights and parental choice over their own child. So it's a really disgusting mess. But the fact that really just getting to the bottom of it, Children's Hospital is back to performing gender affirming care. I would like to see Ann Schutz lose every single dollar from their federal funding, which is a lot. And it's unfortunate because I respect the veterans of this country and Ann Schutz does a ton of veteran care. But the fact is, if you're going to mutilate children and you don't want to follow the law, and Ann Schutz isn't going to use their influence for the betterment of children, then you can just lose every dollar that the federal government and the taxpayers have ever given to you. So it's just a weird place to be. With that, let's get into Polis. You're an expert on this guy.
I wouldn't say
And
that, but
these have been all his policies. Okay, I just find this amazing. They will come for you eventually, Polis. Like
yep.
you guys, they will come for you. The mob will come for you eventually within your own party. These crazies have finally come to hang their leader. Tell us what happened to poor Jared Polis.
Well, he's definitely not poor when he's worth over $400 million and has accumulated another $100 million as being governor of Colorado. But what has happened is he let Tina Peters, the whistleblower, Gold Star grandmother, rot in prison and jail for 4.5 years out of her 9-year prison sentence. And because one of his good friends, a state senator, was just brought up on very similar felony charges, and she was actually convicted of 4 felonies, whereas Tina Peters was convicted on 3 felonies, and she got to walk away with just probation, with no jail time, with no prison time. Polis made an announcement months ago saying, I see the discrepancy and the issue of the fact that Tina Peters was sentenced to 9 years in prison and jail, whereas my friend, a Democrat state senator who was removed from her position for the felony she committed against the state and against the people, received a 0 jail time. And then he was coming up to a wall and he said, okay, up until June 1st, I have to decide on who I'm going to commute. Well, Polis ended up commuting and pardoning a whole bunch of, felony committing individuals here in Colorado, including a gentleman by the name of Brandon Cruiser, who is a attempted cop killer who shot a cop in Douglas County back in 2008 and only did 15 of the 50-year sentence that he was sentenced to. But the Democrats freaked out when they found out that Polis was going to commute Tina Peters' sentence. She had served half of her 9-year sentence for being a whistleblower, and now the belle of the ball, the liberal darling of the progressive left, is a pariah, and they have since censored him to include punishments being speaking bans at Colorado Democrat Party events, event exclusions to include the Democrat marquee events like DemFest and also the Obama Gala. But the big thing, right, was because we were expecting when Polis was done being governor that Michael Bennet would be elected the next governor, and Michael Bennet was going to appoint Jared Polis as the next Colorado senator as he vacated his seat to take the governorship. Bennett has now come out saying Polis will not be appointed to the Senate position. So the Democrats have fully turned their back on Governor Polis. And I'll be honest, I think he had aspirations of a presidential run, but the damage that he's done to Colorado, I'm thinking personally his chances in politics are over.
It's really interesting. I haven't really even had a chance to kind of process what the play might be here because he certainly was getting feedback.
Right.
Certainly people were saying, I don't know, or yes, this is going to be great. This will put you more in the moderate category because, remember, we have the history of 2018 on where he aggressively attacked Colorado implementing comprehensive sex education on our kids, which is sexually grooming children from preschool up. All government schools are implementing that in Colorado. If you receive taxpayer money, your school is doing it. He killed oil and gas. This is all in the first 80 days of his reign of terror in Colorado when he very first, right out the gate. He obviously the red flag laws right out the gate, entering us into the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact right out the gate. He did so much damage in that first 80 days that I remember an attorney from the Capitol called me and said, I mean, initially I called him when Polis was elected and was like, what do you think? And he's like, don't worry about it. There's so many checks and balances. Nothing, blah, blah, it'll be fine. Blah, blah. 90 days in to the reign of terror, he was calling me and he's like, you guys got to do something. They don't
Right.
care. I tell them it's unconstitutional. They're like, we don't care. Get it through. We just need the language. We just need the language. And that's still obviously going on today. So he's getting a little bit of a taste of I have a really hard time believing he didn't see this coming. I really do. And I because we've positioned him as such a radical with his party, his very radical leftist party of Colorado going against him. In my opinion, it moves him into more of the moderate category, which is great positioning for a presidential run or a vice president run. So I'm not sure because like you've talked about so much, I want to kind of get in a little bit is the war in within
Mm,
the Democrat Party of the progressive communists versus the classic liberal Democrats who don't
right.
actually want to, although Pulse, I think, does appreciate the mutilation of children, actually. I do think he is right there with the progressive communists, but
Oh yeah.
because he's signed every law into place. But what do you think of what's going on there? Is that maybe
No,
there's a
you're
moderate play?
I can see Gavin Newsom picking up the president bid with Governor Polis as the VP. I could definitely see that to try to persuade, hey, look, we're a cool, hip, progressive couple. so to speak, with Polis being VP, but him making a presidential bid at this point, I think, is gone. But you would then have the two worst governors of the United States that have completely destroyed two of the best states in their tenure as governor. And I think with as much social media and non-traditional media out there that people are absorbing, I really don't see that ticket going that far in the 2028 election, especially now that we've got the Department of Justice bringing two civil rights lawsuits against the state of Colorado, one being for the 1989 assault weapons ban of Denver, and the other one being for the 2012-2013 magazine capacity limit ban statewide. And Polis is going to have a very, very difficult time trying to paint himself as a moderate. I think he could paint himself as a moderate as well as maybe Tim Walz could if he tried to run for a 2028 election, especially with the sanctuary state issues that he's also brought down on Colorado. And especially with the fact, if you look at even a lot of moderate Democrats are saying, we want to deport the illegals. It's costing us jobs. It's costing us money. Polis might try to, he came in as, hey, I'm a libertarian Democrat, and immediately showed his true colors within the first 90 days and went against everything that is constitutionally protected, not just federally, but also at the state level.
Yeah, absolutely at the state level. It's I don't know if we're watching the downfall or if we're watching the transformation. So I think the next 90 days will tell us because I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. I can't predict this yet.
There's a,
Because
the, you brought up a very interesting thing too, because you said Phil Weiser is one of the Democrat candidates. He is a Democrat candidate in the sense that he has a D in front of his name, but truly out of the two Democrat candidates, we only have one true Democrat candidate, and that is Michael Bennett. Phil Weiser is running as a Democrat Socialist of America. So realistically, the letter that should be in front of his name is a C for communist, because that's what the
Mhm.
Democrat Socialists of America truly are. The Democrat Socialists of America Party of Colorado actually absorbed dozens of communist little factions and parties all over the state of Colorado, including the Colorado Springs Communist Party, into the DSA because they wanted to get rid of the communist moniker because it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. And they're saying, hey, come to the DSA. We are communists. We're just not saying it out loud. We're calling ourselves the DSA. And so if Phil Weiser does win the governorship in 2028, you can be looking at Colorado to be facing the exact same thing that Zohran Mamdani brought to New York City, but at a statewide level. And he brought up an interesting name of Anschutz, who normally bankrolls Republicans, but I am hearing in the back channels of things that Anschutz is actually going to be bankrolling Bennett to ensure that Weiser does not get elected, because if Weiser gets elected, the billionaire class of Colorado, the liberal billionaire class of Colorado, will be targeted the same way the billionaire class in New York City is being targeted right now.
And it's so counterintuitive. Like, how are they supposed to live in this state if I don't really understand what the final objective is. I really don't. Nobody can afford to live here. We have a black market American dream. We've got crime everywhere. We've got terrorism exploding in Colorado. We've got the trannies taking over. I don't. We've got
Illegal immigrants everywhere, everywhere.
it's and they don't bring a lot of money. I don't care what
No,
anybody says. That's a lie. They're not
right.
bringing dramatic amounts of wealth to our communities. That is completely false. They're sucking off our system. They're costing us more every day. Respectfully, that is the facts. So I'm not exactly sure, unless if it's just to kill the American dream and just to
It
kill
is. It
America.
is. I mean, Sharona, I've been doing research on this now for years. In 2025, the state of Colorado spent $1.8 billion supporting benefit programs for illegal immigrants. Over $1 billion went to providing free education for K through 12 and also college to illegals and children of illegals in the state of Colorado. It's an insane amount of money that we're spending here in the state. I just took my family to Steamboat Springs for a vacation weekend, and trying to find an actual legal American born employee in Steamboat Springs, which I love that town. It's actually, to me, one of more of the conservative mountain towns, is next to damn near impossible. You go to the Walmart in Steamboat Springs, almost nobody speaks English. You go to any of the grocery stores, almost nobody speaks English. I had to go to an illegal immigrant to find out where dental floss was because we forgot to pack it, and she couldn't understand me. So she took me to a manager of the store that could speak English and tell me where the dental floss was. It was a nightmare. And this isn't just in Steamboat Springs. This is all over the mountain towns and rural parts of Colorado. They are flooding the employment with illegals because they, one, work for a lot cheap. Two, they don't have to pay payroll taxes on them. And three, they're willing to live in subhuman conditions to be
That's
able
it
to
right
make
there.
slave labor.
That's it right there. They're willing because this is still better than what they came from. It's so disgusting. It's
100%.
so disgusting. Nick Rogers, thank you for being with us today on America's Mom. Always appreciate your perspective. Go check him out, guys. Share him everywhere. Remember, the deep state hates it when strongmen start speaking out and telling the truth. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Toronto.
Wow. Okay, so let's just move right into it. The Mister is joining us today, and I want to get right into this flocking, this camera flocking situation that's going on. First of all, privacy still matters. I don't care what anybody says. If you think it's fine for people to mount cameras every single place for your peace and your safety, you don't deserve either. Benjamin Franklin, okay? You don't deserve either. Neil Bishop joins us here on America's Mom. What do you think about this camera flocking situation? Why do people need to be concerned? I mean, innately, I'm freaked out. But tell me what's going on. What is happening? Oh, you're muted. You're muted because you did a good job and muted when you came in.
Uh-oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear
Got
me
you now.
now? Yeah, what the flock is going on? That's what I like to say. Let's pay the government more money to govern us even harder. That's probably what we should do. Doesn't that sound like a great idea, you guys? Govern me harder, daddy, with the money that I pay you to govern me. I need
Producer.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the month, 365 days a year. I need someone monitoring my goings to and fro, going to Walmart, making sure I, turn my signal on, making sure I am acting like a nice little peasant like they want us to act. Now listen, here's what they always say, you guys. It's for your safety. We're just doing it so, we can catch the bad guys. That's always the front they put on. COVID was for our safety. Homeland Security, we go back to 9/11, it was for our safety. And all of us conservatives were cheering for it. Like, yeah, more government, bigger government. Like, we need to be monitored harder, get those scary terrorists. Then come to find out, all these agencies are monitoring us. Now, we've been on the other end of that, so we can speak pretty clearly on it. We've been on the receiving end of our three-letter agencies that we pay money to babysit us, using that. Now, I know this is going to be hard for many of you to believe, but they use it as a governing stick, a whip, a paddle, if you will, toward their own citizens. Imagine that. So this is going to happen. It's not to catch. Okay, they can catch some bad guys with the flock cameras, but what's going to happen is they're going to turn it toward us, we the people who are paying for it, and it's going to be used. So we'll have to pay more taxes for going 20 and a 15, for not using our turn signal correctly. We'll get a ticket in the mail and all this stuff. And you guys, I'm not just complaining about it. We're going to give you real solutions today as to how to handle this.
But hang on, I want to show everybody this in case you think that we are, out of our minds. Let's put up that video, Mr. Producer. This is the flock expansion starting January 2024, where there was literally none up until this month, May of 2026, where literally I was driving my car in my tiny little town and I looked up and there was a flock camera at the intersection. Take a just so you can roll that video while we're talking, because I don't know if it has audio or not, but just for people to see. This is the expansion of the flock cameras. Take a look.
And remember, kids, the next time that somebody tells you the government wouldn't do that, oh yes they would.
That is, and you saw Texas, guys. Texas is covered in this constant police state surveillance program. I want to know who got this contract.
I know.
I want to know.
Yep.
I want to know who's behind the contract.
So,
yeah.
And for your viewers' information, you already know this, but there's a little town in Missouri, and you guys can look it up. Little town in Missouri who the city council voted for their citizens to get flocked. And they said, what the flock is going on here? We're going to get unflocked or deflocked. So what they did is they said, we're going to get whichever one of these flocking city council members voted for the data centers. This data centers, by the way, I know we're talking about flocking, but we're going to unelect them. We're going to get unseat them from their city council. So it's going to take extreme measures. Now, we happen to live in a very nice, conservative, we're a lot of nice people. We get along with everybody here. So you have to use your best judgment as to how to do this. If I were in Colorado, I would go in with my frickin' guns ablaze and, what do they say? Not literally speaking, figuratively speaking. But, you don't have to be mean. You want to be nice, but we need to educate people on what these actually are, because you might have some really good city council people or commissioners, like in Utah, where these commissioners just think this is going to benefit the economy and we're going to have, great time with these data centers going in. Same with the flocks. They present it to our local government servants as something that's going to benefit your city or your town or your county, but they leave the other half of the truth out. Whether it's data centers, whether it's 5G or now 6G towers going up, which in rural areas in rural Texas and other rural states, you see these huge, giant, ridiculous 5G towers going up, and you can practically feel the radiation just humming off of these things. And you go, who approved that? And did they just come in and say, hey, we're doing this? They can't do that. They have to have local approval to do this. So somebody's approving it, and you got to figure out who, whether it's county or city officials. And we're right now actually working on some documentation or an outline that people can take in with them about the flocks and about the data centers that you just take in and you go and share. And the more the merrier. And so unfortunately, we're going to have to spend probably less time entertaining ourselves and more time fighting against what's coming.
I want to give. Well, let me just tell you what's coming. Let me give you a real life example of what just happened with the flock cameras in Orange County, California. Orange County is very conservative, by the way. So the fact that they let this happen is very surprising to me as well. Orange County, California, we have a cop who was using the flock cameras and the software to illegally track his okay, listen to this. You're going to get lost in these details because you can't believe this guy. He tracked his mistress, he tracked his wife, he tracked his mistress's boyfriend, and it goes on, okay? He is then suspended from the department, but he keeps using the flock, even though we're told that this is a closed system. Where have you heard that before? It's completely secure. It's so secure. It's the most securest system of cameras
as
ever.
secure as the Dominion voting machines. Okay, go ahead.
As secure as all voting machines, actually. The system he monitors American citizens unlawfully. He eventually pleaded to misdemeanors, not felonies, and he was only given 3 years of informal probation. This is just one case of many. I want to encourage everybody to go to haveibeenflocked.com. Okay. The information is not totally complete yet, but please go to haveibeenflocked.com. And here's the thing, we're not putting up with this police state nonsense. You cannot keep looking to government to assess every single behavior that everybody does. This crazy robotic modification that's happening to us all because we're afraid the government's going to catch us is so asinine. It's so convoluted and contrary to development and production and ideas and creativity and the things and the environment you need to be living in to have all of that. You can't have that in a controlled society. This is what they do in China, you guys. The data centers that you watched the interview with Tucker and Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Tell us what he said about the data centers. I mean, he didn't mince words.
Which part?
Who are we trying to be? Why are we implementing these data centers everywhere?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's a rush to beat China and Chinese technology and get ahead of the game. And that's how Kevin O'Leary put it. And Tucker Carlson very rightly and appropriately asked the questions. He didn't even really call him out, although you could see it as calling him out, but he asked the question of who's paying for this? Why are we in a rush to make sure that we stay ahead of the technology? What's the point of it all? And if taxpayers approved it, the people that are paying for it Have we approved it? And Kevin O'Leary tried to make an unfruitful case, we'll say, that taxpayers have a choice of whether or not to pay for it. No, we don't. It's like looking at your tax bill and going through it, your local tax bill, and going, did I decide to pay for this college or for that school or whatever it is? No, you didn't. You just got a bill in the mail that said pay your property taxes. That's how they're going to tax this. We tax it, and then we have to deal with the lack of energy that comes from it, the lack of water that comes from it. There are already people in numerous states who are being forced to leave because of land issues, and also because of issues where these data centers are putting off frequencies where you can actually hear the noise. And I don't want to be a guinea pig like they've already found in many of these hospitals on certain floors where there's a crazy amount of radiation. They've already found that we're talking about in some hospitals, 100% of people that work on a particular floor are coming down with tumors. And then we're seeing the same thing in airports.
That's wild.
I don't want to live in a police state for sure, but I also don't want to live in some, technocratic matrix thingy where you're in the radiation if you're in the 15-minute city, and if you go out of it, then they get these alarms that go off that you're not living in it. It's all leading up to that. But the good news is if we don't comply, then they can't follow through with their plans. Like, we have to start really activating our own divine sovereignty as human beings, and then letting that kind of reverberate out in your communities and take action to not comply with these things. And honestly, I think sometimes they'll put sheriffs or city council or commissioners up against, between a rock and a hard place, because the conversations behind closed doors are, hey, you guys will get money for this. You'll get funding for this. We'll help fund your department with this. If all you have to do is sign here that we can come in with the data center or the flocks.
I'm wondering. I'm wondering if DHS is a part of the funding mechanism for the
And I
flocking,
wonder too.
because we learned about that
Yep.
with Border Patrol, right?
Yep.
We learned in the state of Texas that DHS funding was directly tied to compliance with border policies by the Biden administration. And sheriffs were threatened with the pulling of their funding if they did not support Biden's policies with open borders. We know that for a fact. And that's when we learned how powerful DHS was, and rightfully so. Like, something needs to be done about that. And I actually forgot about that till we're having this conversation. DHS needs to stop funding sheriff's departments, and the state of Texas needs to properly fund the sheriff's department. So I want to know who's behind this contract. And as you and I are learning how these mechanisms really work, it's not that hard. It's really based on who you know. Somebody comes up with a decent idea, everybody gets a little cut of it, not necessarily saying anybody's doing anything illegal. I'm not saying that.
No, and if they're not challenged on it, they don't see the other side. So it doesn't mean that every person in your local government has bad motives or bad intentions.
Right.
It's probably not the case. They just don't know the other side of the coin. They're being presented one side. And that's where the people come in and we say, no, actually this. And actually it's our money. And actually you work for us. Have you checked with us about this? I have a feeling that especially in some of these rural communities, if they were to check in with the people would say, no, I don't want to get flocked. And no, I don't want the data centers going up. And so they're not going to call you and check in. And they're probably not even going to invite you to a meeting. You're going to have to, as America's Mom has showed us how to do over the years, make your own table, build your own table, set it up, go into the room. They were saying, what are you doing here?
What the fuck are you doing?
Well, what the fuck? No, they're going to say, what the fuck are you doing here? And you're like, no, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I pay for this building. I paid for this table, and I'm setting it up, and I'm having a chair here. Do you remember the time we went to a school board meeting and got kicked out right away because of the COVID? And they were so happy to kick us out because they had the health department on their side this time. So like, Neil and Sharona Bishop, you can't be here at this meeting because of health concerns.
Oh my God.
Because
that was the one and only time we allowed that to happen, but we didn't know what our rights were at that time.
We didn't, but you did learn through that, and you taught people that even with school board issues, well, maybe especially with school board issues, you got to follow the money, right? They're promising money for this and that. If you introduce this into your curriculum, you get this. That's the way it works. And so you have state and federal government coming into our local officials, and they're corrupting good people. And we don't want to do that. Who was it? You remind me who it was that said we have a republic if we can keep it, right? You,
Yeah, that I want to say
Ben
that was
Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin.
Ben Franklin,
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Producer Michael. You're always just on task, and you have a good politician that you put into office if you can keep him or her. But
On
once
the
they
straight
get
and
there,
narrow.
yeah, you got to keep them. And if you don't, we've seen that numerous times. You get a grassroots good candidate in office, and you lose them. And we sort of just are used to, the sticker, I voted, I did my part, I voted. Now I can go check out for that other 364 days of the year. Those days are over. Got to be active. School boards, city council, county commissioners. If you don't want to get data centered and flocked in more ways than one, then you've got to get active and just say no. We've got to not comply with these things. So
Okay, I hate to switch gears, but in our last 8 minutes, I really want to talk about a story that's hit the national news. There is so much going on about this. You did a little post, and people absolutely lost their minds.
yeah,
I mean, everybody's kind of losing it right now, and that is the Candace Owens interview of Victor Marx. The
yes,
reason it matters, by the way, guys, I'm not promoting the National Enquirer here or TMZ, Timu, whatever. I actually thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, I'm not promoting anybody, but it's important. Victor Marx is running for governor of Colorado. He is slated to be the winner of if we're looking at numbers and fundraising and all of that right now, he will be the winner of the primary, the Republican primary, it looks like. And he went on with Candace Owens, and it was quite the little showdown. Obviously, just to I'll put in a little lump real quick. Candace is basically drawing some parallels that Victor Marx, first of all, he's an evangelical or born again Christian, and he takes a lot of authority in that. She doesn't like the way that he thinks that he can call out demons, that he can summon angels, that he can deliver people. She's trying to draw a line between him and Turning Point doing illegal things or knowing too much about Charlie Kirk before the assassination and after. There was a lot of things happening there.
yeah,
So I
yeah, and she
tell me your
questions a lot of his childhood stories, which have been a part of his story for decades and decades. So I'm in a unique position here, and so are you. And that's that. First of all, I like Candace, and I watch her and I listen to her, and I think she's done a lot of amazing work in uncovering crazy kinds of stuff and in helping people wake up to certain issues and all this and that. Of course, I don't always agree with her. I also like Victor Marx, not because he's running for Colorado governor. I liked him years and years and years ago when we met him and had him come into. I had him come into the Grand Junction Youth Correctional Facility well over 10 years ago, and met him back then. He didn't charge us. There was no money. He was, him and his few of his team came in and they did an amazing job. I thought he's an amazing evangelist, and he reaches out to youth and does a lot of good work. So I'm watching this, and my take from liking both of them and watching that interaction overall, my take was that Victor Marx came out with the upper hand, and that Candace was sort of childish in some of the ways that she handled it. And I don't like to say that because I'm not ready to pick on Candace. I like Candace. So I decided I'd do an experiment, and I'll post about it and say basically that, hey, I watched this little debate, this dialogue, and I thought Victor Marx came out with the upper hand. And it just took off with the experiment.
Central.
It revealed that on the right, there is this weird kind of just crazy division. They're saying the exact same things about each other. On the one hand, you've got Victor Marx supporters saying Candace is a psyop, she's insane, she's a lunatic, all this stuff. And then on the other hand, you've got people that love Candace saying Victor Marx is insane, he's a lunatic, he's a liar. They're literally saying, and it's about 50-50.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of comments just on my one little post.
Yes.
They're saying the exact same things about each other. So I think it's revealing, especially in Colorado, but I think in general in the United States, people are under a lot of trauma. And you nailed this a while back. People are very traumatized in Colorado from all of these psychological operations, from all the infighting, from all the name calling. There are various people in Colorado who want to be leading the Republican Party that, I'm sorry, it's the biggest comedic horror show I've ever seen. All they can say, their best lines are, "You could go F yourself." Like, that's how they talk. If you don't agree with me, you can go blah, blah. You can go flock yourself or whatever it is. And they're very low functioning, low IQ, highly traumatized and very divisive people. And one thing I do think, because I don't endorse people. I don't even, I mean, I don't care about endorsing someone. I like Victor Marx. I like their ministry, and I've liked him up, to what I know about him as a person.
Mhm.
I don't know that he'd make a great governor for Colorado. I have no idea. Probably better than many of the politicians who have a political science degree would make as
Mhm.
governor, but maybe he'd make a great governor. I don't know about that, but I think that their team is onto something, and it's something that you and I already know. There are infiltrators in the conservative movement in Colorado, probably in every state, but most definitely in Colorado, who have been causing division and destruction for many, many years. I think we can definitely see it starting about close to 10 years ago, and it's working. They hijack movements, any true grassroots movements, they come and hijack them, and it's called this thing called, they actually have a term for it. It's called man in the middle, where they come between people in like a conservative grassroots movement that's making waves and doing good. They come between them, they cause division and destruction, and they ultimately want to destroy that movement, and they call themselves conservatives, and they're influencers in Colorado. They may even be people that are running for office in Colorado, and it's something to definitely be aware of. They love to talk about themselves. They love to call people names. They love to have emotional breakdowns on their lives and on their podcasts. So watch out for those people, because you may be a victim of one of these infiltrators on the right, especially in Colorado.
Wow, that was a great breakdown. There's a book out there called Outrage Circus that was actually written by a Coloradan. And at the time, I read the book and I didn't fully understand what was going on. I need to go back and read it again, actually, because I think it's going to be even more pertinent and I'm probably going to pick up a lot more nuggets than I did the first time. Outrage Circus is exactly what you just described. It's fake.
Mm,
It's fake. It's gay. It's Ozempic
yep.
face. It's it's trauma. It's purposeful trauma. Create the chaos and come in with the quote solution. And that is it's a strategy, and it's a strategy that's so watching your post and watching the breakdown of
Oh,
really sweet people. A lot of these people are really sweet people. I know a lot of them. And watching this capture of the brain, the capture of emotion like this,
yeah,
based off of the rhetoric of those who are supposedly quote leading Colorado. They are
yeah,
not actually, in fact, leading Colorado, but they are promoting a circus that they
yep.
want you all to be a part of.
And
And I
and they've
think that
gotten people to a place
Mhm.
where you can't even have a dialogue without just calling each other names. And
Yeah,
I mean, I did, mine was more of like a kind of an in the middle post. And
yeah,
I'm personally getting called names on it, and then everybody
yeah.
on there is calling each other names.
I think you're an anti-Semitic, like, a lot in here,
I'm usually an
and I don't even know
anti-Semite.
what that's about because that didn't even come up.
Well, it didn't, and what's
No.
weird is I've criticized, like, places like China, and I've never been called anti-Chinese, or I've criticized
Oh,
in places like Iran. I haven't been called anti-Iranian, or
it's
you know what I mean?
weird.
If you
Yeah.
I it's very strange what's going on. I think.
Everybody secretly criticizes Bibi Netanyahu, by the way. I'm just telling you all.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody is secretly criticizing him.
Yep.
Uh, uh,
And
so
I've criticized Trump. I don't get called anti-American.
anti-Trumper.
Yeah, kind of
Are we on a hard
interesting, huh?
stop? Did we get kicked? You know what? I think,
We're still on, I think.
unfortunately, are we? I think we're on a hard stop, though. I think that's Michael signaling to us.
Okay.
Listen, your take was awesome. Everybody go check out the Mister. You can find his most active account on Facebook. But guess what, you guys? He is going to be on a special broadcast with Mike Adams, the health ranger,
Yeah,
on
should be
Sunday.
posting either end of this week or maybe Sunday, so
Yes, so you guys are not going to want to miss
should be
that.
fun.
But I think we will actually run the interview right here on America's Mom on Monday
Yeah.
or Wednesday. So you guys will get to see it in its entirety here. It's going to be very interesting and very controversial. I can tell you that much. I heard enough. I heard enough to go, uh-oh.
Hey,
Once,
thanks for having
once,
me on your
yes.
show, Mrs. Bishop.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bishop, for joining me. Thank you guys so much for being with us on America's Mom. Enjoy your day today. We will see you back here tomorrow with some great guests again, 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time.